Hey everyone, it's Chaz again, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to use the index function, the match function, and how to combine them to do some things that an ordinary VLOOKUP function simply can't do. So let's get started. So let's start up here with the index function. The index function takes 3 arguments. I just need to know what range of cells to check, like a table or whatever range of values that you have. And then I need to tell the index function how many rows to count down and then how many columns to count over. Literally, that's all the index function does. You just give it a range of values, tell it how many rows to count down and how many columns to count over, and it just gives you the value that's there. Nothing else to it. So in my example here, it says to look in this range of cells within the blue rectangle. It actually extends farther down, but we won't worry about that. And then count down 5 rows. That includes the first row with the headings in this case, because I do have that row selected. So we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then from this spot, count 3 columns over. So 1 is the cell that you're already in. So 1, 2, 3. And you end up at the value 116. So when you type in this formula, the result is just 116. So the index function, you give it a position and it returns a value. All right, so I made a little example here. I just have a table with some made up values, some student names, their favorite colors, favorite food, favorite month, and favorite YouTuber. And the question I ask right here is, what is the value in row 5, column 3? Okay, well, let's just use the index function. So we'll go equals index, parentheses. I need to select the range of values, or the array in this case. So I'm just going to click, drag, select all of this, press comma, and then I want row 5, so let's type a 5, and I want column 3, so type a 3. And then when I press enter, I get apple. And this is correct because when I go into my table, my table started here at A1, so I can just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you start in that same cell to count 1, 2, 3. And yeah, row 5, column 3 is the word apple. And then I ask, what is the value in row 8, column 5? Well, how would we do that? Let's go equals index. It's the same array or the same range of values. And then it says row 8, column 5, and I get me. Awesome. And if I want to double check that, I can go to the beginning of my table and count 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then from here, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And yeah, there I am. Now, this is all well and good. This was easy because I see that, row 5, column 3, I mean, the 5 is right there. I can just find the number 5 and go 1, 2, 3. So let me see what happens if I mess this table up. I'm going to copy all of this. So Control C to copy. I'm going to go into a new sheet, and I'm not going to start in A1. How about I start it like here? So this is going to mess up my formulas because it's not going to be row 5 and column. Hold on. What? The formula still worked. In fact, they both still worked. But Apple's not in row 5 anymore. Look, it's in row 8. That's weird. Why is this working still? Well, let me show you. So if you remember what I said earlier, when you're looking in the range of cells, the index function is not literally finding row 5. It is counting 5 rows down. So it doesn't matter where I start my table. Whatever starting point I give the index function, that's where it's just going to start counting from. So in this case, the index function is starting from cell C4. So it's going to start here, and from there, it's going to count down 5 rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then from here, it's going to count 1, 2, 3, and you still get apple. So in reality, in most cases, the index function isn't going to be very useful by itself. However, where it really does shine is instead of typing in, for example, a row number, you put a different formula in that spot. So you can automatically find a row number that you don't necessarily know already. So this is where something like the match function could come in. So let's take a look at that real quick. So the match function also takes 3 arguments, but the main difference here is instead of giving it a position and then it returns a value, this time you give it the value and it returns the position. So let's look at it in a little more detail. So in my image here, I have a value shown with the blue rectangle, and I need to find that value within a certain range, and I have that with the pink rectangle. And then the last value here is just the match type, which for most cases, you're going to use a 0 for an exact match, but you can also use 1 and -1, and they do different things. But if I take a look at my example data here, I'm trying to match 25202 in column A. So I gave it the value, and it's going to tell me the position. So it's going to go into column A. And since I just did all of column A, it's just going to start at the beginning. So it's going to count until it sees 25202. So let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There it is. So it finds the value in row 9. It's not actually looking at the row number in Excel. It's literally just counting it. And since it counted 9 rows down, it returns the number 9. It does not return the value in that cell. It just returns 9 because that's the position where it found that value. Okay, so I'm back in my example table here. So this time, instead of giving you the location and asking what the value is, this time I'm giving you the value, and I want to know what position it's in. So first question, which row contains the value black? So let's use the match function. So we'll go equals match, parentheses, and the value that I want to find is the word black. So the case is going to matter. So let's go quotation marks and type the word black, comma. And in this case, I need to already know which column it's in. So in this case, I know it's a color, so it's going to be in the favorite color column somewhere. So I could just select the entire column, but in the case of my Excel file, I merged these cells down here. So it's not going to work. If I try to select the whole thing, it's going to mess it up. So I'm just going to click and drag and select this entire range here, comma, and my match type. In this case, I want an exact match. I don't want less than or greater than. So let's do 0. And I close the parentheses and press enter, and it says that the value black is in row 4. Or technically, it's saying that if I go in column B, starting at B1, if I count down 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, that's where the value black is located. All right, next question, which row contains the value December? Well, I know December is a month, so I'm going to be looking in column D. So let's go equals match. And the lookup value this time is the word December. Put it in quotation marks, press comma, and I need to look it up within the month column. So if I hadn't done my weird formatting down here, I could have just clicked the entire column, but instead I will just drag and select all the values. And the match type again is a 0. Since I want an exact match, close the parentheses, press enter. And let's see, before I press enter, let me just see where it's supposed to be. If I'm starting the count from D1, then I should go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I should get 10, and I do. All right, now I want to be fancy. This time I'm not asking which row contains the value red. I'm asking which column contains the value red. If you were going to use the match function with the index function, maybe this is a situation where you already know the row number for the formula, but you actually need the column number. So let's try it out. So I know that red is in row 5, and the question is, which column is it in? So let's go equals match, parentheses, the value is the word red, so let's go red in quotation marks, comma, and this time I'm asking for which column is it in. So selecting the entire column is not going to help me. I need to select the row, and in this case, I'll just select the entire row. So I know the row, and I need to know which column. So in the previous questions, I already knew the column, and the question was which row. This time, I already know the row. The question is which column. So anyway, 5:5 means the entire row. If I wanted to, I could just click and drag and select all the values. But in this case, selecting the entire row works just as well. And then finally, the match type will be exact. Let's go 0. Close the parentheses, and I should show it in 1, 2, right? Yeah, column 2. And just like before, if I select all of this here, the questions and the table, and I try to copy and paste it into a new sheet, and I decide not to start in A1, if I just decide to start it over here instead, to try to mess things up, everything will actually still work. Because you can see in this case, the lookup values start at D6. So if I want to know which value contains black, starting from D6, then I go over here and count 1, 2, 3, 4, and the answer is actually still 4. And when I press enter, yeah, it is still 4. It's because the index and match functions aren't actually looking for the row number and the column. It's actually counting spaces from whatever starting point you give it. So if you wanted to compare and contrast the index and match functions, the index function, you give Excel a position and it returns a value. And with the match function, you give it a value and it returns the position. And these two functions often work together because sometimes you need to return a position using the match function to use in the index function. Okay, so I'm back into my tennis player data here, and I have a problem where I need to display the rank of the winner of each of these matches. So I have the winner's name here, and more importantly, I have the ID, which is going to be a lot more useful. I say it's more useful just because 5 numbers is going to be a lot easier to deal with rather than a whole bunch of text with spaces and punctuation. In this case, I already know that this data, there are no typos, everything's correct. But what if I didn't know that? It would be a lot easier to use a 5-digit ID versus actual names. So, okay, I just need to get the rankings from a different table using the IDs right here. So let's just go into the players table. And what is going on here? Yeah, so what I did was I really messed this table up. If you've already worked with this tennis player data, then you know that the player ID used to be very nicely located in column A. I decided to move it to column E, just to mess things up. Now, in the video that I put out earlier today, I showed you that you can still use VLOOKUP even if the player ID is not in column A, as long as the value that you're trying to display is to the right of the player ID. So any one of these, that will still work. However, this time I need the rank, and the rank is way over here. It's to the left. We have a problem now. VLOOKUP can't do this. But we can still solve this problem using index and match. So basically, what I'm trying to do in order to display the rank right here is I need the index function to find the location with the rank. And in this table, the rank is always in column 2. If I start here, then 1, 2. So in the index function, I know it's going to be column 2 always. But I'm not going to know the row number because going back to the original table, I don't necessarily know which row the winner's ID is located in that other table. So in order to find that row number, I'm going to have to match it using the match function. So when I'm working with a function inside of another function, I personally like to do the inside function first and then work on the outside function. So in this case, match is going to be inside of index. So let me match the value first, and then I'll do the index. So I'm just going to go equals match, and the lookup value is going to be the winner's ID number right here in D2. The lookup array, where am I going to try to find this value? Well, I'm going to try to find it in that other table, in the players table, and the player IDs are all in column E. So I'm going to look in column E, come back to my formula, and the match type is exact, so 0. And I'm just going to close the parentheses, and for now, I'm just going to hit enter. And you can see that, yeah, it's working because in that other table, this value, 14970, is located in row 2. And I can double check that, come over here, and I can see it's right there. So if I started at the top of the table, 1, 2, so that's why it returned the number 2. I can come back here and I can, if you wanted to, you can click and drag down however many rows this is. But what I usually do is just take my cursor right here and then double click. and that will apply the formula to the entire rest of the table. And let's see if this is actually doing the right thing. Now remember, this isn't the actual rank. This is only the match function. I haven't added the index function yet. But let's just double check that the match function is working. So how about this one here? You got a 6, so it looked up the value 12744, and it says that it was 6 rows down in that other table. So let's double check that. So let's see, 12744. So it was this player ID column. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 12744. That's the same number I was looking for. And it was 6 rows down, and it returned a 6. So the match function is working. Everything is good. So now that I know that the match function is good to go, I am now going to wrap the index function around it. So basically what's happening here is, if you remember with the index function, you just give it a table or a range of values, and then you just tell it to count a certain number of rows down and then a certain number of columns over. So that match function gave us the number of rows that the index function must count down. So I still have to tell the index function which column to look at. So I'm going to go back to my players table that contains all the ranks. And so if this is going to be my table, the match function already told me the row to look in. So I need to just say which column, and it's going to be column not 1, but 2. And that's going to be the same for all of them. It'll always be column 2, because that's where all of the ranks are located. They're all in column 2. So let's come back to my formula here. I'm just going to undo what I did before when I applied this formula to the entire column. This way the formula is back in just one cell right here. And I just double clicked. I can also just edit in here if I wanted to. So I'm going to wrap the index function around the match function. So let's go. I already have the equal sign, so I don't have to type it again. Index. I need to give it the array of values, or which table am I going to be looking at? So that table is located in the other sheet. So I'm going to go to the players sheet, and I'm just going to go ahead and select all the columns. It doesn't matter in this case, but I'm just going to select them all. So that's the range of values. And then I need to give it a row number and a column number. In this case, the row number is whatever the match function gave me. Because if you remember, when we did the match function took the player ID column, which is kind of blocked right now, so you can't see the heading, but it's this one right here. It took the player ID column and it counted down how many spaces until you found that player ID. That's going to be the row number for the index function. So I'm just going to use this entire formula to be the row number. So I'm just going to leave it there and hit comma. And now I know the row number. I need to tell the index function the column number. And in this case, which column do I want? I want the rank. And rank is 1, 2. It is column 2. If I wanted to display centimeters, I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I would type an 8 over here. If I wanted to show the name again for some reason, well, that's just, if centimeters was 8, the name is 9. So I would type 9. But in this case, I want the rank. And rank is just 1, 2. So let's type a 2. And when I press enter, I get the rank. And in this case, the winner ID of 14970 has a rank of 1. And I can double check that. Go into the players table, and 14970 does have a rank of 1. And of course, I can take my mouse, put it in the bottom corner so it turns black, and double click, and that'll give me all of the remaining rankings. And if I wanted to just double check one of these, how about, let's check this one. So according to my formula, the winner ID 1866 is supposed to have a rank of 13. So let's check that in the players table. So there's ID 1866. And if I look across, yeah, that's rank 13. So my index and match functions both worked. So that's basically it when it comes to index and match. I do have one more column here, so I can just do it one more time just for practice. This time I want the loser rank. So I have the loser's name here, but more importantly, I have the loser's ID right here. And then in my players table, I have those same player IDs, and I have the rankings that go with them right here. And just to mess around, just to prove a point, I guess, I'm going to take this column and I'm going to put it all the way over here. Because I just want to show you that it doesn't matter where the player IDs are. It makes no difference on how the formula works. Now, of course, since I did move the player ID column, it's not going to mess with the index and match functions, but it is going to mess up the VLOOKUP functions. And I do have some VLOOKUPs in my tennis matches tab. So when I click over, yeah, I have errors now over here. So let me just fix those real quick. Okay, we're good to go. Now let's work on the loser rank using index and match. So like I said before, I prefer to do the inner function first. So let's go equals match, and the lookup value is going to be the loser's ID. So in this case, E2. I'm going to hit comma. I need to know where to search for this value. I'm going to search for it in the other table. And the player IDs are right here in column H this time. So that's where I'm searching. And the match type is going to be exact, so just a 0. I close the parentheses, and this time it says 5. 5 is not the rank because I haven't used index yet. 5 is how many rows I have to count down in order to find this value, 45415. And I can double check that. Go to player ID, it was column H that I searched, and I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And yeah, there it is. 45415. I counted 5 rows down. Therefore, the answer in that cell should be a 5. So we're good. So now when I put in the index function is going to know to count 5 rows down, and then all I have to do is tell it how many columns to count over. And it's going to be rank here, so I know it's going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then from here, I want to go 1, 2. So that other value for the column is going to be 2. So let's come back here and edit my formula. I can double click or I can click in here. And I'm going to wrap the index function around the match function. So let's go index. I don't have to type equals because the equal sign is already there. And now the index function just gives me a value based on the position within a table or a range of values. So I need to tell it which table to look at. So go into my players tab and I'm going to look at this table. Let's just select all of the columns of the table. So it's going to search within this table. I need to tell it how many rows to count down and how many columns to count over. So how many rows do I count down? Well, that's just whatever I got for the match function. Because remember, the match function returned the row number that I needed. So let's just leave the match function there. That'll be the row number. So it's going to count down that many rows, however many rows shows up from the result of the match function. So how many columns do I count over? Well, 1, 2. It's always 2 because the rank is always in that second column. So just type a 2. So I've got my range of values, I've got my row number, and I've got my column number. So that's it. Close the parentheses, press enter, and there is the actual rank, rank 4. And I can double click down in the bottom corner of this cell to get the rest of them. And if I wanted to just double check one of these values, let me find an easy one. How about this one, 962? According to my formula, that rank should be 37. So I'm going to go into the players table and I'm going to look for 962. So here are the player IDs. I'm going to just scroll a little bit, and okay, there it is, 962. And what rank does this person have? According to this table, it is 37. And when I come back here, yeah, it's 37. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope it wasn't too confusing trying to work with 2 functions at the same time. But ultimately, index and match is really hard to grasp. But once you get the hang of it, you're able to use it in more situations than the VLOOKUP function. So that's going to be it for this video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll see you next time.